The lawyer's office smelled like old leather and disappointment. My siblings sat in their designer clothes, barely containing their glee, as Mr. Whitman read through Grandma Cecilia's will. $3 million each for Brandon, $3 million for Ashley, $3 million for Marcus. Properties divided equally among them. Investment portfolios transferred. Even her jewelry collection, the one I'd helped her catalog every summer, split 3 ways. And to my granddaughter, Josephine Marie Caldwell. Mr. Whitman paused, adjusting his glasses. I leave the contents of safety deposit box 447 at First National Bank on Meridian Street. That was it. No money. No properties. Just whatever was in a safety deposit box. Brandon snorted. Figures. Even dead, Grandma knew Joey was the family disappointment. Brandon, our mother chided weakly. But she was already eyeing the inheritance tax paperwork, calculating her children's newfound wealth. Ashley didn't bother hiding her smirk. Maybe it's some savings bonds. You know, enough to pay off those student loans from that art degree. Marcus, the eldest and cruelest, was already on his phone. Probably just her old photos and worthless mementos. Grandma always was sentimental about junk. Mr. Whitman slid a small envelope across the mahogany table. My name was written in Grandma's spidery handwriting. Inside, a single brass key, spotted with rust, attached to a leather tag that read only 447. That's it, Ashley laughed. Joey gets a rusty key to what? A box of costume jewelry. The worthless grandchild gets worthless junk, Marcus said, standing. Seems fitting. He pulled out his phone, showed me the photos he'd posted from Grandma's house that morning. My childhood artwork. Photos of me with Grandma. Letters I'd written her from college. All burning in the backyard fire pit. Cleaned out your old room, he said casually. Made space for my home office. Grandma's house is mine now, after all. I fingered the key, staying silent. Let them talk. Let them gloat. Let them sign every document Mr. Whitman placed before them with eager, greedy fingers. Miss Caldwell, Mr. Whitman said quietly when my siblings were distracted with their windfall. The bank closes at 5. You might want to visit sooner rather than later. Something in his eyes, a flicker of knowledge, maybe amusement. I nodded once. The funeral was that afternoon. A lavish affair my siblings had planned to showcase their newfound wealth. Brandon gave a speech about family legacy while wearing a new Rolex. Ashley dabbed at dry eyes with a handkerchief that cost more than my rent. Marcus talked about preserving Grandma's memory while living in a house where he burned my photos. I sat in the back, the rusty key heavy in my pocket. After the service, relatives I hadn't seen in years suddenly remembered I existed. Joey dear, I heard about the will. Aunt Patricia cooed with false sympathy. So unfair. But then you were never really close to Cecilia, were you? She left me what she wanted me to have, I said simply. A key? Uncle Robert laughed. To what? Her cookie jar. I smiled, said nothing, and left early. Let them gossip. Let them pity poor Joey with her art degree and her rusty key. First National Bank on Meridian Street was an old building, the kind with marble columns and tellers who knew your name. Mrs. Chen at the safety deposit desk smiled when she saw me. Miss Caldwell, we've been expecting you. She took the key, examined it. Box 447. Your grandmother was very specific about the instructions for this box. Instructions? She led me to the vault, past rows of identical boxes. She said you come alone. Said you come after the others had signed everything. Her eyes twinkled. She also said you'd understand why when you opened it. Box 447 was larger than I'd expected. Inside 3 things. 1. A manila envelope, thick with documents. 2. A leather journal, worn and familiar. 3. Another key, modern, silver, attached to a tag with coordinates. I opened the journal first, recognizing it immediately. Grandma's investment diary, the one she kept religiously for 60 years. The one my siblings claimed never existed when they ransacked her study looking for financial records. The final entry was dated a week before her death. My dearest Joey, by now your siblings have gleefully divided what they believe is my entire estate. Let them. The money I left them is real, enough to keep them satisfied and stupid. What they don't know is that the millions they receive represent exactly 15% of my actual wealth. You see, my darling girl, while your brothers and sisters spent their visits asking about my will and checking my bank statements, you spent yours asking about my life. While they cataloged my possessions, you cataloged my stories, And in those stories, I told you everything. Remember the tale about your grandfather's foolish investment in that little Seattle coffee company? The one your father laughed at. Starbucks turned those worthless shares into quite a fortune. Remember when I told you about buying useless land in Austin back in the 70s? The parcels your siblings called Grandma's dirt collection? That dirt is now in the heart of the tech district. The key you're holding opens more than a box, Joey. It opens the door to everything I really owned. Everything I kept hidden from grasping hands and greedy hearts. The documents in this box will lead you to 47 commercial properties across 7 states, investment portfolios worth approximately $280 million. Art collections in climate control storage, yes, including the monet your brother said was fake. The vineyard in France your sister claimed I invented. The publishing rights to your grandfather's patents. And the crown jewel, the 1,800-acre ranch in Montana where I taught you to ride. All held in trust, all in companies they never knew existed, all waiting for the only grandchild who loved me for me, not my money. There's one condition, my dear. You must never share this wealth with your siblings. Not out of cruelty, but because they've already shown you who they are. Brandon burned your memories. Ashley mocked your dreams. Marcus destroyed what you loved. They chose their inheritance. Now choose yours. The silver key leads to the ranch. Your real inheritance isn't money, Joey, it's freedom. The freedom to create, to live, to be exactly who you are without apologizing to anyone. All my love, Grandma Cease. P.S. Mr. Whitman has been my lawyer for 40 years. He's the only one who knows the truth. Trust him. He has instructions to help you claim everything properly and quietly. P.P.S. The rusty key? It's from my first apartment, the one where I started with nothing. I kept it to remember that wealth isn't what you're given. It's what you build. You, my dear, have been building all your life. I sat in that small vault room and cried. Not from grief, I'd done that already, but from the sheer magnitude of her faith in me. While everyone else saw the struggling artist, the unmarried granddaughter, the one who couldn't afford designer clothes or fancy cars, Grandma saw the truth. She saw the girl who spent summers learning her recipes instead of asking for money, who helped organize her photos instead of appraising her jewelry, who asked about her childhood in Poland instead of her stock portfolio. The manila envelope contained deeds, titles, account numbers, contact information for lawyers and property managers, an empire hidden in plain sight. The ranch alone was worth more than what my siblings had inherited combined. I called Mr. Whitman from the bank. Ah, Josephine, he said warmly, I trust you found everything in order. She left me everything. Not everything, he corrected gently. She left them what they expected, money. She left you what they never understood was valuable. The rest. My siblings. Signed ironclad documents accepting their inheritance as complete and final. They can't contest what they don't know exists. I could hear his smile. Your grandmother was a brilliant woman. She structured everything perfectly. Shall we meet tomorrow to begin the transfers? I hung up and looked at the silver key. The coordinates led to Montana, to the ranch where I'd spent my happiest summers, where Grandma taught me to ride, to paint landscapes, to see beauty in wild things, where my siblings had never bothered to visit because it was too far from civilization. That evening, I attended the family dinner at Marcus's house, Grandma's house. They toasted their good fortune with champagne that cost more than my monthly salary. At least Joey can afford to eat tonight. Ashley laughed, gesturing at the elaborate spread. Consider it our charity. Yeah, Brandon added, already drunk. Maybe we should set up a fund for her. The Failed Artist Relief Foundation. I smiled, sipped water, and let them talk. Marcus showed off his plans to gut Grandma's gardens and install a pool. Ashley bragged about quitting her job to become an investor. Brandon had already bought 2 sports cars. What about you, Joey? Mom asked, trying to be kind. Will you be all right? I know Grandma's oversight must hurt. I'll be fine, I said honestly. Grandma left me exactly what she meant to. A rusty key, Marcus laughed again. To what? Did you even check? I did. And it opened what it was supposed to open. Which was? Ashley pressed, sensing something. I stood gathering my things. A door. To what? Brandon demanded. I looked at them, my siblings who've inherited millions but not wisdom, who've gained wealth but not worth. who'd burned my photos while sitting in a house worth less than the dirt they'd mocked. To the future Grandma wanted me to have, I said simply, "Good night." I left them there, confused and irritated but not worried. Why would they worry? They had their millions. They had one. The next morning, I met with Mr. Whitman and began the quiet process of claiming my real inheritance. By the end of the week, I was worth more than my siblings would make in 10 lifetimes. But I didn't buy sports cars or designer clothes. I didn't quit my job at the gallery or move from my small apartment. Not yet. Instead, I flew to Montana, used the silver key to open the ranch house, and found one last gift, a studio Grandma had built just for me, with north-facing windows and views of the mountains. On the easel was a note, "Paint your truth, Joey. It's worth more than their lies." 6 months later, my first solo art exhibition opened in New York. The mysterious buyer who purchased the entire collection for $2.3 million remained anonymous. The check was drawn from a company called CLC Investments. Cecilia Louise Caldwell Investments. Thanks, Grandma. My siblings came to the opening, of course. Drawn by the prestige and the free champagne, calculating how to use my sudden success for their benefit. "I always knew you had talent," Ashley lied smoothly. "We should talk about investing your earnings. Family helps family." Speaking of family, Marcus interjected, "You could use a business manager. I'll give you the family discount. Or you could invest in my new venture," Brandon added. "Ground floor opportunity." I smiled at them over my champagne glass. Real champagne now, not the cheap stuff I used to drink. "That's kind of you all. But I have excellent financial advisors. They've been managing my portfolio for years." "Portfolio?" Ashley blinked. "What portfolio?" "The one Grandma helped me build," I said truthfully. After all, she had just not the way they assumed. They exchanged glances, calculating, wondering. But what could they do? They'd taken their millions and signed their papers. They'd mocked the rusty key and burned my memories. And now I stood in a gallery wearing a simple black dress and my grandmother's pearl necklace. The real one, not the copy she'd left in the jewelry box they'd divided. The one she'd hidden in the ranch house with a note, "For Joey's first exhibition." "You know," I said quietly, "Grandma once told me that wealth isn't about what you have. It's about what you do with it." "Easy to say when you have nothing," Marcus scoffed. I smiled. Exactly. They left early, frustrated by my calm and their inability to figure out my sudden success. Let them wonder. Let them assume I got lucky with art sales. Let them sleep soundly in their paid-off houses while I owned the land beneath 100 others. That night, I called Mr. Whitman. "I want to set up a foundation for struggling artists, full scholarships, living stipends, no strings attached." "Your grandmother would be proud," he said warmly. "What shall we call it?" I thought of the rusty key still on my keychain. The key to a first apartment, to humble beginnings, to remembering where you came from. The Rusty Key Foundation, I decided. For artists who have everything but opportunity. Perfect. And your siblings? They got what they wanted, I said. Money without meaning. Wealth without wisdom. Exactly what they deserve. I hung up and looked at the gallery walls, now empty of my paintings but full of promise. Tomorrow, I'd fly back to Montana. I had a ranch to run, properties to manage, a fortune to shepherd. But tonight I raised a glass to the woman who saw me clearly, who gave my siblings enough rope to hang themselves with greed, who left me a rusty key that opened every door that mattered. "Thanks, Grandma," I whispered, for knowing the worthless grandchild was worth everything. Somewhere in her house, Marcus slept soundly, never knowing he lived in the smallest property in Grandma's true portfolio. Ashley dreamed of investments, ignorant that her millions were pocket change compared to the accounts she'd never known existed. Brandon polished his sports cars, oblivious that I owned the dealership where he'd bought them. And I held a rusty key and smiled. Because Grandma was right, they'd chosen their inheritance, cash they could count and spend and waste. She'd left me something better, everything else. The key to her first apartment, the deed to an empire, the knowledge that being the worthless grandchild had made me the only one worthy of her real trust. $3 million had bought my siblings' silence, their signatures, their willingness to write me off. It was the best investment Grandma ever made.
I spent $200,000. Kenny, who didn't even come to my mom's funeral, had suddenly flown overseas. $200,000. What did you do with all that money? Remember our nice piano at home? I sold the dude. Being from a rich family has its perks. It was a good piano. I never thought it would sell for $200,000. Kenny thought the piano at home was his, but he was wrong. My condolences. I get all the inheritance from the family estate. But that piano was actually bought by our grandpa for my brother, so it's still his. My brother loves that piano and teaches piano now. He left it at our house because it's too big for his place. If my brother finds out we sold it without asking him, he'll be really mad. Just giving him money won't fix it. When I told Kenny this, he hung up right away. Hi, I'm Rachel Schneider, a 45-year-old office worker. My family has a long history tracing back to colonial times and is quite prominent in our community. Thanks to my late father's successful business, we now possess assets worth $9 million. Originally, my older brother was set to inherit the family estate, but he chose love over inheritance, opting to forego his rights to marry his girlfriend, who needed an heir for her family's wealth. This decision left me with the task of finding a spouse to carry on our family name. Despite my desire for independence and reluctance to rely on family wealth, I focused solely on my career, and before I knew it, I was in my mid-40s and still single. Realizing the urgency of continuing our family line, I decided to take action and attended a singles mixer. It was there that I met Kenny, my current husband. Surprisingly, he's 10 years younger than me, but at the event, he showed no interest in the younger women and approached me directly. I'm not sure if you're okay with someone my age, I asked him multiple times. But Kenny gazed into my eyes and replied, I'm a bit shy and not very assertive. I've always been attracted to older, more grounded women. Kenny's demeanor matched his words, gentle and reserved. I sensed he could bring a sense of calm to my family, which tends to be assertive. As our relationship blossomed, there was something important I needed to share with him. My mother had been ill and bedridden for the past year, and my sister-in-law, Catherine, and I were taking turns caring for her. Considering our age and the prospect of marriage, I struggled with how to reveal this to Kenny. Eventually, on our third date, I mustered the courage to tell him. To my relief, he not only accepted but also proposed, expressing his willingness to assist with caregiving. His kindness deeply moved me. At least, that's how I initially felt. Kenny works as a daycare teacher, but just 4 months into our marriage, he expressed a sudden desire to quit his job. When I inquired about the reason, he wore a remorseful expression and said, Sorry, Rachel. The parents at the daycare are too demanding and complain a lot. I can't handle it anymore. It was evident that Kenny was struggling, appearing so timid. Normally, I would have encouraged him to persevere, but with him assisting in my mother's care and my pregnancy progressing, I remained silent. However, I soon began to regret my leniency. One day, as I exited the shower and approached the bedroom, I overheard Kenny whispering on the phone. What I heard left me shocked and unsettled. I managed to tie the knot without her suspecting a thing. I'm jobless. She bought my story about quitting work hook, line, and sinker. Little does she know, I ditched that job 2 years back. His conversation seemed directed at a friend on the other end of the line. A faint male voice responded, You're quite the operator. Rachel's family is loaded, so I thought I hit the jackpot when I met her at that singles event. But let's face it, given her age, I was probably her only option. I felt duped. Was the sweet Kenny I fell for all an act? I wanted to confront him right then and there, but the thought of the baby stopped me cold. With Kenny's true colors revealed, I began to doubt our future. Today, Catherine will be looking after my mom until 5:00 p.m. Then it's my turn. I debated whether to confide in someone about Kenny. That's when my brother's wife, Catherine, approached me. Rachel, you seem troubled. If there's anything on your mind, feel free to share, Catherine said, her kindness evident, having cared for her own mother for years and now mine. She's really good with Mom too. So I confided in her about Kenny, and she listened attentively. It's good you opened up. Keeping it to yourself could harm your unborn child, she reassured me. Yeah, I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Talking won't solve everything, but it does lighten the load. Still, this situation is quite something. Catherine looked genuinely concerned, almost as if it were her own problem. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and Kenny walked in without waiting for an answer. Both of us were surprised, but Kenny acted as if nothing was wrong and smiled. Rachel, I'll be helping with your mom's care from now on. You're not in the safe period yet, so I don't want you to strain yourself, Kenny said, playing the gentleman in front of me. Really? Okay, let me show you how to care for her. No, I'll learn from Catherine. You just rest at home. Well, my brother's coming home early today, so we won't need her help. Upon hearing that, Catherine looked at me, shaking her head, as if to say, it's okay. She might confront Kenny and get the full story once I'm gone. With that in mind, I decided to leave it to her and head home. But I couldn't shake my worry, so I pretended to leave but hid nearby. Catherine tried to start a conversation with Kenny, but he beat her to it. I've been meaning to ask, why are you taking care of your mother-in-law in this house? He asked, using the same tone as on the phone. Well, my husband's busy, and Rachel has her job. But more importantly, why you ask? Then Kenny interrupted. What? And began hurling insults at Catherine. You live in such a wealthy home. You'd have enough money to put your mother-in-law in a care facility, wouldn't you? Or is it something else? Did your husband give up his claim to this family's wealth? So you're trying to curry favor by taking care of her? That must be it. You'd be pretty upset if you married into money and didn't get a piece of the inheritance, wouldn't you? It was cruel. I was furious too, ready to leave the room. But just as I was about to, Catherine, noticing me, signaled with her eyes to stay put. Reluctantly, I remained silent and watched the scene unfold. You've hit a nerve, haven't you? If that's the case, leave right now. This family's wealth belongs to my wife and me, so I'll handle my mother-in-law's care alone from now on. With Kenny's stern declaration, Catherine felt it was pointless to argue further and left the scene. Sensing the tension, I discreetly stepped outside, concerned about Catherine's feelings and wondering how to apologize to her. Kenny took over Mom's care entirely, refusing any assistance from me. He only provided basic instructions on caregiving. But his neglectful approach led to tragic consequences, and our mother passed away. The funeral took place at the church where generations of our family had been laid to rest. However, Kenny was nowhere to be found from the moment Mom passed away. Despite my attempts to locate him, I was too overwhelmed with funeral arrangements to pursue the matter. Relatives and neighbors were puzzled by his absence. Catherine, grief-stricken at the altar, apologized for trusting Kenny with Mom's care. Approaching her, I tried to offer some comfort. Catherine, please don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. Rachel, it's not your fault either. But where is that man? I wanted to confront him today, and he disappears just as Mom passes away. Exactly. And didn't Kenny often leave the house while he was supposed to be caring for Mom? Where was he going? Yes, neighbors mentioned he was frequently out, almost as if he wasn't caregiving at all, just loafing around. They also mentioned a big truck that came by once. What was that about? I wanted to ask, but with the funeral, I didn't bring it up. Days passed, and Kenny still hadn't returned. Then, I received a call from him. Hey, Rachel, I'm in a fancy hotel in Europe, like the ones you see on TV travel shows, Kenny said nonchalantly. Kenny, you missed Mom's funeral, and now this. I spent $200,000. $200,000? Where did you get that kind of money? Remember the grand piano at our family home? I sold it. Who knew it was worth $200,000? Kenny confessed to selling the family's cherished grand piano and squandering the money on luxury travel in Europe. I never imagined Kenny would pull something like this while supposed to be caring for Mom. Our family home had tight security, but with family, it's different. That truck must have been there to move the piano. Why would you do something so selfish? The whole family was worried about you missing the funeral. Well, once you have a kid, you won't have much free time. Since you have a job, I guess I'll have to be the stay-at-home dad. Kenny's words left me stunned. Despite my anger, his willingness to take on childcare was a silver lining. But it seemed he was aiming to live off me. Additionally, Kenny seemed to think the piano belonged to me. Confronting Kenny, who had unknowingly sold a piano and spent the money, I started with, "My condolences." "Huh? What do you mean?" Kenny seemed bewildered, so I explained about the piano. "That piano belonged to my grandfather, bought for my brother. So it still belongs to him." "Oh, really? I'll just apologize to your brother then," Kenny replied, lacking any remorse for selling someone else's property. Kenny only met my brother at our wedding, so it's understandable he didn't know. My brother is a piano teacher and has loved the piano since childhood. He begged our grandfather for that specific piano. Although there's no room for it in his house now, it's still his. He even dreams of starting his own school with it. The piano means everything to him. I can only imagine what punishment he'll have for you when he hears it was sold without permission. By the way, my brother despises dishonesty. As I explained, Kenny remained silent. Understand? Mere compensation won't suffice when he finds out you sold his beloved piano. He's not one to compromise. I wonder what punishment awaits you. With that warning, the call abruptly ended. He's probably regretting it now. I called my brother and told him everything. Needless to say, he was furious. The next day, Kenny rushed home, finding everyone gathered in the living room. "What's going on? Why is everyone here?" Kenny asked nervously. "I heard everything from Rachel," my brother said sternly. "What possessed you to sell someone else's property, especially something so valuable, without consulting the family?" Kenny tried to justify himself, visibly shaken. I was just trying to pitch in with the household chores out of boredom. When I saw the old, large grand piano, I figured no one was using it anymore. So you decided to sell it. Yeah, it seemed like a waste to just leave it there. My brother, wearing a stern expression, pressed further. Really? That piano was special, imported by our grandfather from a top European manufacturer. Where's the money from the sale? As anticipated, my brother was playing his part well. Everyone probably knew Kenny had spent all the money on an overseas trip, but my brother was aiming for a confession in front of everyone. Kenny seemed lost in thought, struggling to come up with an excuse. The sales money. Yeah, it hasn't come in yet. Kenny stammered, clearly flustered, but my brother wasn't buying it. You're lying? How deceitful can you get? And what about those souvenirs from Europe in that huge suitcase? Kenny recoiled as if struck by lightning, closing his eyes in shame. I'm sorry, I spent all the money. Kenny's admission left the relatives murmuring in shock. Everyone knew the value of that grand piano. They couldn't fathom how Kenny could blow $200,000 on just one trip overseas. My brother, looking down at Kenny, lifted his chin with his hand, locking eyes with him as he said, "As Rachel probably told you, that piano was mine. Now that it's gone, you'll repay every penny. If you can't, I'll sue you for theft. Are we clear?" My brother's intensity was palpable, almost resembling a mob boss. While this would typically be a family matter, my brother was likely using intimidation tactics, knowing Kenny was clueless about the law. Predictably, Kenny lost his voice and began sweating profusely. Then, with a terrified glance at me, he pleaded, "Rachel, please help me." His voice was desperate, but I had no intention of intervening. This mess was entirely of his own making. When I rejected his plea, Kenny resorted to a ludicrous argument, saying, "Don't be so cold. I looked after your mom while you were pregnant. I saw the trip as a reward for myself after caregiving. Let's just say we both agreed to sell the piano this way. Since we're siblings, it can't be considered theft, right?" I was so dumbfounded that my mouth hung open, unable to form a response. It was Catherine who stepped in to defend me. "That's enough. Didn't you tell Rachel not to assist with caregiving? You even accused me of being after the inheritance and tried to push me away. Kenny, did you say such awful things to my wife too?" "Yes, I didn't want to worry you, so I kept quiet. But this man must have been scheming to sell the piano without letting Rachel and me near the family home. Catherine's words resonated with me, remembering how Kenny prevented me from getting close to the family home when he said he'd handle our parents alone. I reached the same conclusion. My brother's anger flared up once more. Listen closely. My wife cared for Mom because she wanted her to stay out of the facility. She agreed out of kindness, not for money. First, apologize to my wife right now. With my brother grabbing Kenny by the collar, tears welled up in Kenny's eyes as he knelt before Catherine. I'm so sorry, Catherine. Kenny's apology for his disrespectful behavior towards Catherine didn't soften the cold gazes of the relatives. Then, one of them shouted at Kenny, "You need to repay the money from the piano sale promptly. We can't tolerate a criminal in the Schneider family. It'll stain our name." Misinterpreting the situation once more, Kenny made another peculiar remark. Exactly. We can't have a criminal in the family, right, bro? So let's keep calm. We'll work together as a couple to repay the debt gradually. Even my uncle was left speechless by Kenny's illogical response. Feeling that further discussion would be futile, I excused myself to retrieve something from my room. Ever since the phone incident, I had a divorce lawyer's business card ready. Kenny, call this number. I want our marriage to end. Let's handle things through legal channels. Kenny's face drained of color when he saw the business card I handed him. Why? We're expecting a baby. Why are you doing this? At that moment, I disclosed what Kenny had said to everyone on the phone. You heard that. It was just a joke. Do you think that's a valid excuse? I've known all along that you were after my inheritance. Everyone present glared at Kenny, realizing there was no way to justify his actions. Kenny responded with defiance, unwilling to admit his wrongdoing. Rachel, please, I need your help, Kenny pleaded in desperation. He explained that the buyer of the grand piano he sold wanted to return it and get a refund. When Kenny had sold the piano, he claimed it was in perfect condition. However, upon inspection, the buyer discovered a large engraving on the back indicating my brother's ownership. It seemed Kenny hadn't checked thoroughly. Instead of selling it through a reputable dealer, he likely chose a shady one enticed by offers like completely free, and now he faced the consequences. Kenny had to refund $200,000 to the buyer, a significant sum considering his debt to my brother. Despite Kenny's attempt to file for bankruptcy, my brother and I took legal action to prevent it. Now, burdened with more debt, Kenny worked tirelessly in manual labor. Eventually, the heirloom grand piano was safely returned. Relieved, my brother secured it with a strong lock and installed a security camera in the room, exercising caution. No one will touch that piano until I begin my piano lessons, my brother declared, unchanged from his childhood self, which brought a smile to my face. With his desire to start a piano school at our family home, I decided to discuss sharing our mother's inheritance. Feeling guilty for inheriting everything alone after Catherine's devoted care for our mother, I proposed the idea to my brother, who agreed. It ensured a positive relationship with his family in the future. And so, I welcomed a long-awaited baby girl. While some relatives hoped for an heir, I believe daughters tend to cherish their mothers longer in today's age. Besides, my mother, an only daughter herself, accepted a son-in-law, so if necessary, my daughter could do the same. Embracing single motherhood, I found unwavering support from Catherine, who had finished raising her own children. Grateful for her assistance during my mother's care, I felt deeply indebted to her. My brother eagerly volunteered to be a father figure for my daughter, his excitement palpable. Additionally, my brother and Catherine's two adult daughters, both kindergarten teachers, shared his passion for the piano, bonding with my daughter. Surrounded by such warmth and support, I felt immensely fortunate, and with gratitude, I resolved to face life's challenges head-on with my daughter by my side. Can you really sit here? You're not part of the family, just married in. My mother-in-law said mean things to me while we were having dinner at a fancy restaurant. She looked at me with a smirk and waved her hand. I felt so mad but tried to stay calm. Are you telling me to leave? I asked her. I was shaking with anger. Just as I was about to get up and leave, my mother-in-law stopped me. Hold on, if you're leaving early, who's going to pay the bill? Give me the money. She said it with a proud look on her face. I smiled back at her and said, why should I pay for someone I barely know? My name is Maya, and I'm 29 years old. I work in an office. My husband, Tyrell, is the same age as me, and we usually have a good time together. But there's one problem, my mother-in-law. She's always trying to control me and make me do things her way. My mother-in-law lives close by, so she often visits our house without being asked and keeps complaining about everything. She always has something to say about my cooking, saying it's not good enough for her son. She also criticizes how I keep the house, calling me a failure. Even though she knows I work during the day, she comes in the evening and mocks me for being at home. But she acts differently when my husband is around, so he doesn't believe me when I tell him about her behavior. He thinks she's fine because he hasn't seen her being mean to me. She seems normal at first, so my husband doesn't understand how bad it really is. Now things have gotten worse. She even has a key to our house that my husband gave her, and she uses it to come in whenever she wants, complaining about cleaning and cooking. She also talks badly about me to our neighbors. It's just one thing after another with her. I've been telling my husband for a while now that I want us to move far away from my in-laws, but he's been too busy with a big project at work to take me seriously. Then something good happened. My husband got a promotion. His project was a big success, so he got promoted and he'll be making more money now. Now that we're making more money, what do you think about starting a family? But if we're going to have kids, I want to live in a place that's good for them. There aren't many places for kids to play around here, and not many daycare centers. Don't you think it's time we moved? Finally, my husband agreed that we should move. I was happier about this than I was about his promotion, but that happiness didn't last long. The next day, my mother-in-law showed up at our house unannounced like usual. I was annoyed, thinking she was going to nag me again, but this time it was different. I want to celebrate my son's promotion by taking him to a fancy restaurant. It's really expensive, but the food is great, and everyone there is very nice, she said. That sounds nice. Good for you, I replied. You're still not very friendly, she said. Anyway, I want you to come with us. Please come. I'll see if I can, but it might not work out, I said. Don't say that. We want you to come, she insisted. Even though I said I might not be able to make it, my mother-in-law just smiled and left. She used to exclude me from things, but now she's inviting me and saying she'll wait. Something's up. When I asked my husband about it later, he said he had already agreed to go with her. She booked the restaurant for us, and I'm excited about it, he said. You're excited about this, right, Maya? My husband asked. Sorry, but I'm not really looking forward to it. I'm worried about how much it'll cost at such an expensive place. I don't want to go. Just tell them I'm busy and have fun without me, I replied. Why are you being so negative? Plus, it's not just us going. My brothers and their wives will be there too. It wouldn't be right if you didn't come and celebrate with the whole family, my husband said, eager for us to go to the fancy restaurant. He really wanted me to go, even though I didn't want to. He didn't seem to listen to me anymore. If he believes his mom more than me, I'll use the voice recorder I bought online to record her being mean to me. I thought to myself, she's probably going to be mean to me at the celebration too. I'll record her and show it to my husband. If he still takes her side, I'll think about divorcing him. Making that decision made me feel a bit better. But the day of meeting my mother-in-law at the restaurant felt really sad, and I couldn't stop sighing. I didn't know my husband's brothers well. I had only met them briefly at our wedding, and I barely remembered talking to their wives beyond saying hello. When we got to the restaurant, the waiter took us to a big room. My mother-in-law, one of my husband's brothers and his wife, and another brother and his wife were already there, sitting down. The fancy food was already on the table, and there was only one empty seat. My husband looked confused and wondered if there was a mistake. Did the waiter mess up? I'll go check, he said and left the room. As soon as he left, Everyone started eating. Then my mother-in-law stood up and looked at me with a mean expression. "There's no seat for you. Why would I invite someone who just married into our family to our celebration? So here's your choice. Prove you want to be part of our family or leave and never come back. What's it going to be?" Without hesitating, I said, "No, I'm leaving." My mother-in-law looked surprised for a moment. Did she really think I would beg her to accept me as family in this situation? No chance. "Listen, if you pay for everyone's meal here, I'll accept you as part of Terrell's family. You must be upset about being treated like a stranger, so pay up and become family," my mother-in-law said. "I already told you, I'm leaving. Why should I pay for someone else's family's meal?" I replied as I walked away. Mother-in-law slammed the table and yelled, "Don't you understand? I'm trying to make you part of the family. Are you okay with being a stranger? Pay up." "No, I'm fine being a stranger. And since I'm a stranger, I'm not paying for your meal. Goodbye." Mother-in-law tried to catch up to me, but by the time she got to the door of the room from the farthest seat, I was already at the restaurant's exit. When I got home and was thinking of emailing my husband, he returned within 10 minutes. The waiter said the reservation was correct, and my mom was causing a scene. "I heard everything from my brother," he said. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. You came back quickly," I said. "It seems like she would have caused a scene if you had stayed," he replied. "How could I sit with them after they insulted my Maya?" My husband quickly understood what had happened after I left and hurriedly came back home to me. After I said I was okay being treated like a stranger, it seemed to wake up my husband's brother's wives. They used to think they had to silently endure being treated badly, but seeing me stand up for myself made them realize they could too. They both left, and their husbands quickly followed. I expected my mother-in-law to complain, and sure enough, the phone started ringing nonstop within 3 hours. I ignored it, but it was so loud that I had to block the calls. Then I got a call from an unknown number. "Hi, sorry for calling so late. Is this Maya's phone?" The person on the other end said he was a police officer from the nearby police station. He told me that after everyone left, my mother-in-law tried to eat and then wanted me to pay the bill later, but the restaurant didn't want to deal with her after the scene she caused. They refused to let her pay later, thinking I wouldn't come back after leaving so angrily. My mother-in-law then called me to come back and pay, but I ignored all her calls. The restaurant suggested she pay with a card. But my mother-in-law didn't have a credit card and didn't have enough cash to pay for everyone's meals. She tried calling other family members to help, but nobody picked up. Eventually, she got really angry and started yelling that it was all my fault. She got so mad that she started breaking expensive vases and flower pots in the restaurant, which made the staff call the police. The police tried to calm her down, but she kept saying she wasn't wrong. The restaurant didn't just have an unpaid bill but also had to deal with a difficult customer, so they asked someone to take her home. Feeling bad for ignoring the police's calls, we reluctantly went back to the restaurant. When we got there, the police were trying to calm my mother-in-law down. She had her arms crossed and then suddenly screamed when she saw me, "You're useless. This happened because you didn't pay the bill. It's only right to help your mother, isn't it? Pay up now." I was shocked that she would say something so threatening even with the police there. The police told us that if nobody took her home, they would either drive her to her in-laws' house in their car or arrest her for not paying the restaurant bill. When I said, "Take her away, arrest her, or whatever, just make her take responsibility," with a serious tone, my mother-in-law looked shocked. She said, "How can you say something so heartless? I can't believe it. Just pay the bill. It's not good to have a family member arrested." I replied, "I don't care. I'm not family, and I don't want to be around someone who acts crazy and causes trouble." As I tried to leave the restaurant and let the police handle it, my husband, who had been quiet, gave me a stern look. He said, "I know what happened to Maya was wrong, but is it really worth getting arrested over?" I replied, "That's not the point. She's in trouble because she didn't pay the bill and caused a scene. It has nothing to do with me. Or are you saying it's my fault for not paying for 6 people's meals even though I didn't eat?" My husband didn't say anything, but he walked past me and went to talk to the police and the restaurant staff. I knew what my husband was going to do when he walked away, so I called out to him, "If you pay for her meal and make it up to her, we're getting divorced." Think about that. But my husband didn't say anything and took out his wallet. I sighed and left the restaurant. I walked home, packed my things, and got ready to leave. Just before the day changed, my husband came back. He said, "Mom's not getting arrested." It turns out she was really wrong. The restaurant said they'd forgive her if I paid them back and promised she wouldn't come back. I didn't have enough money, so I called my brothers for help. My husband kept talking about what happened after I left, looking tired. Maybe because I didn't react much, he came over to me looking upset. "What's with the bags?" he asked. "I'm getting ready to leave because we're getting divorced." "I told you if you took her side, we'd get divorced. You can't pretend you didn't hear me," I said to my husband as he watched me pack with surprise. Then he started shouting, "What's going on today? You've been acting weird all day. I know Mom did something bad, but why do we have to get divorced? I already told you I'm being mistreated, and even when you see proof and hear others talk about it, you still choose your almost arrested mom over me. Is it weird that I want to divorce someone like that?" "I've had enough," I replied. My husband kept talking, but I didn't really listen. I got ready to leave and also got the paperwork for the divorce. The next morning, I got the divorce papers and signed them right away. My husband didn't want to get divorced, but when I said I'd get a lawyer, he reluctantly signed. Then I submitted the papers. Finally, I could go back to being a stranger. Later, my husband moved out and went to live with his parents. He used to rely on me for most of the housework, so without me, the house became a mess. He didn't like the messy house and decided to cancel the apartment lease and go back to his parents' home. The older and younger brothers ended up doing the same. When my husband asked them for help with paying back the restaurant, they got into big fights with their wives. The wives said they shouldn't have to pay for something that wasn't their fault, but the brothers used their own money to help their mom without asking their wives. And they believed their mom's words that their wives were being unreasonable and might get them arrested. Seeing them disrespect me made their love for their wives fade away, and they were faced with divorce right then and there. They also went back to their parents' home, saying they didn't want to do housework. So, in the end, my mother-in-law and the 3 childish brothers all went back to their parents' house. Now they're good talk of the neighborhood, with everyone saying the brothers were abandoned by their wives. Mother-in-law calls it nonsense and tries to explain how useful and ungrateful we wives were. The husbands heard the story and just nodded smugly, saying, "I knew it was the wife's fault." Divorcing them was the best choice. Luckily, I had good relationships with my neighbors, and nobody believed those stories. Mother-in-law earned a reputation as a mom who didn't do a good job raising her sons, and the husbands were known as mama's boys who always took their mother's side instead of supporting their wives. Even though my angry mother-in-law and the husbands tried to reach out to me, I had changed my contact details and moved to a new place. They couldn't find us in the end and are probably still grumbling about it. Not having to deal with my mother-in-law's stress is a big relief, and making new friends has made a big difference too. During the divorce, I became friends with the ex-wives of my husband's brothers. We bonded over our shared frustrations with my mother-in-law. Now we often hang out, go out to eat, and shop together on weekends. I might even have to thank my ex-husband for introducing me to such wonderful friends. It's great to be free to do what we want now. It might seem obvious, but it feels really freeing. I want to live our lives without getting involved with people like my mother-in-law. I'm grateful to my new friends. If it weren't for them, I might still be living alone. They've made me feel happy and not lonely. I'm truly thankful, and I hope our friendship lasts forever.
Hey everyone, I'm Camila, and I want to tell you about my life. I grew up without a lot of money, but my husband Jackson had a totally different childhood. His family was rich, and he even started his own successful business. I have a good job too, but I still feel connected to my middle-class background. The only problem is my mother-in-law Addison. Dealing with Addison was like trying to navigate through a storm. But Jackson's dad, Grayson, was great. Addison, though, enjoyed putting me down and making me feel small about my family's money situation. She criticized us in private and even in public. Jackson always had my back, but Addison's insults never stopped. It got so bad that I thought about leaving Jackson because I didn't want to deal with his family anymore. But Jackson's love and support kept me going. He was amazing, unlike his mom. With time, I got better at handling Addison's behavior. So when she showed up with a flashy wedding dress right after we booked the venue, it didn't surprise me. She proudly showed off the dress, asking us what we thought. "Isn't it amazing? It's from that fancy bridal shop you guys couldn't afford with your wedding budget," she said, not hiding her dislike. When I mentioned that her dress was too fancy for the occasion, she glared at me, clearly upset. I felt really uncomfortable then, not knowing how to handle her extravagant behavior, especially since Jackson and I were planning a simple wedding with just 60 guests to save money. We didn't want to spend too much, so I found a simple wedding dress that fit our budget. But Addison's dress was way too flashy. It was so extravagant that it would definitely steal the spotlight from me at my own wedding. It was obvious she picked it on purpose, knowing it would make a big statement. When I gently suggested she wear something else, Addison got really mad. "How dare you tell me what to wear? I spent $125,000 on this dress. Do you really think I'd waste that money? I'm wearing it, no questions asked." Jackson tried to step in, saying, "Mom, listen to Camila. That dress isn't right for our small wedding. Please pick something more suitable." But Addison wouldn't change her mind. "No way, Jackson. I love this dress. I'm not settling for some random dress like your wife. I have my own standards. It's my big day too as the mother of the groom," she insisted, ignoring how ridiculous she sounded. Jackson, surprised, argued back, "Addison, it's not your big day. Stop trying to steal all the attention. You're not wearing that dress to our wedding." The argument got intense quickly. Addison refused to give up on the dress, leading to a heated exchange between her, Jackson, and Grayson. The tension got so bad that we had to leave early without resolving the issue. Jackson was frustrated, saying, "I can't believe my mom would do this. She's being unreasonable. Maybe she shouldn't even come to the wedding." But kicking Addison out of the wedding could make things worse. If we disinvite her, she might make an even bigger scene. She doesn't keep promises, and she does whatever she wants. We need to think of a smarter solution, I suggested, thinking about what might happen if we excluded her from such an important day. Jackson was frustrated too, admitting how badly his mother had treated my family and me over the years. "I'm tired of her insults and disrespect. It has to stop. She can't ruin our wedding." So we agreed. We needed a plan that would keep Addison from causing trouble without making her suspicious or angry. As time passed, Addison stuck to her decision, leaving us to plan carefully to keep our wedding focused on our love, not her showing off. We all agreed that we needed a smart plan to handle the situation. So Jackson, Grayson, and I got together to figure it out. We were tired of her disruptions and all wanted to make sure she didn't take over our wedding. After talking it through, we came up with a plan and quietly started putting it into action, making sure Addison didn't catch on. We stopped talking to her about the dress and only gave her basic information about the wedding, which didn't bother her much since she was too busy trying to outshine me. Just a few days before the wedding, we were having dinner at my in-laws, and Addison couldn't contain her excitement. "I can't wait for your wedding, Jackson. I've been thinking about it for so long. My dress and jewelry are all ready to shine. It's going to be such a special day," she said, clearly thrilled, though it was obvious she was most excited about showing herself off. "It will be special, especially because I'll be marrying Camila," Jackson responded subtly, trying to bring the focus back to us, the real reason for the celebration. But Addison quickly made it about herself again. "Sure, Camila will look nice. But next to me in my expensive dress, I doubt it. I spent a lot to make sure I stand out." Hearing this, I couldn't help but admire Addison's boldness, insisting she was better and planning to steal the spotlight from the bride on her big day. Jackson complimented Addison's dress to keep things calm, while I silently appreciated his support, squeezing his hand under the table. Grayson, always the wise and calming presence, played a crucial role in our plan. He gently teased Addison, pointing out how strange it was for her to make such big plans for a wedding that wasn't hers. "Addison, you're really going all out for a wedding that's not even yours. Shouldn't we focus on the couple getting married?" His remarks subtly reminded everyone of the real reason for the celebration, steering the conversation away from Addison's self-centered plans without causing more trouble. This clever move was an important part of our strategy to handle the situation gracefully, making sure the wedding stayed a happy occasion for us and our guests, not just a platform for Addison's ego. As the wedding drew near, Addison insisted on having only the best makeup artist for herself. For my son's big day, I need top-notch treatment. After all, I'm the mother of the groom, she declared. She was determined not to mingle with guests she felt were beneath her, especially while wearing her expensive jewelry, fearing it might get stolen by those unfamiliar with such luxury. Grayson had a clever idea. Why not get ready at home? It's safer and more comfortable, especially with all your plans, he suggested. Addison loved the idea of making a grand entrance and praised Grayson's thoughtfulness, unaware of our hidden agenda. Grayson exchanged a knowing look with us, showing that our plan was going smoothly. Caught up in her own excitement, Addison didn't realize she was falling into our trap. The thought of her surprise on the wedding day brought quiet satisfaction to Jackson and me. Even though I wish I could see her reaction in person, knowing the plan was in motion allowed me to focus on the joy of the upcoming wedding, feeling a sense of relief. While there was a slight worry about the plan being discovered, Jackson and our supportive friends helped ease those concerns. Everything was organized perfectly, reigniting my excitement for the special day. After months of stress, I felt genuinely thrilled about our wedding for the first time in a while. It was shaping up to be a celebration of our love, free from any outside drama. As the wedding morning arrived, bright and beautiful, it felt like the start of a new chapter we had been eagerly waiting for. The weather was perfect, adding to the joy of the day. Grayson, my amazing father-in-law, was the first to arrive at the venue, well before the rest of us. He stopped by to check on me, and despite my nerves, he'd assured me that everything was going according to plan. "Don't worry, dear," he reassured me, explaining his early arrival was due to Addison's difficult behavior. "Her makeup artist won't be here for another hour. We have plenty of time." I felt immensely grateful for Grayson's support. "Thank you so much, Grayson. I can't express how much this means to me," I told him. He smiled warmly, reminding me that I was now part of the family and assuring me that the day would unfold just as we had envisioned. His presence was a comfort, especially considering the challenge of dealing with Addison as my mother-in-law. I felt fortunate to have Grayson by my side. After checking in on me, Grayson made his way to where Jackson and I were getting ready for the ceremony. The day was shaping up to be everything I had ever dreamed of. I'll always remember the look of love on Jackson's face as I walked towards him, escorted by my uncle. Both of us were overcome with emotion, surrounded by our closest friends and family, with Grayson's supportive presence adding to the moment. As for Addison, her grand entrance didn't go as planned. Dressed in her expensive gown and covered in diamonds, she expected all eyes to be on her. But when she arrived at the venue, she was in for a surprise. It was empty. Confused and a bit panicked, she called Jackson, her voice filled with disbelief. "Jackson, what's going on? Why is nobody here?" she asked, clearly caught off guard by the turn of events. Addison frantically searched for us at the venue, puzzled by the absence of familiar faces. Jackson broke the news. She wasn't at the right place because she hadn't been invited to the real wedding. Her confusion quickly turned to disbelief, eliciting laughter and amusement from our side. Even Grayson struggled to contain his laughter, finding the situation quite amusing. As Addison pressed for answers, insisting she was speaking with Jackson and not me, her confusion grew deeper. Jackson calmly explained that although the venue she was at had been booked initially, we had chosen a different location for our ceremony. Learning that the wedding had already happened without her left Addison in disbelief, questioning why she hadn't been informed earlier. Jackson, growing impatient, pointed out that her exclusion was intentional, a decision made to prevent the disruptions her presence might cause. Despite his explanation, Addison couldn't believe that her own son would go to such lengths to keep her from his wedding. The conversation heated up as Jackson confronted her about the unnecessary drama surrounding her dress and her attempts to steal the spotlight from the bride. His firm stance surprised Addison, who struggled to come to terms with the consequences of her actions. Jackson's firm assertion that the day belonged to him and his wife, not to his mother, marked a clear end to the dispute, highlighting the significance of the occasion for the couple over any individual's desire for attention. Jackson emphasized that he would no longer tolerate Addison's disruptive behavior. making it clear that the wedding day was about him and his wife, not anyone else. After delivering this message, he ended the call. Despite Addison's continued attempts to reach him and multiple calls to Grayson, we went on to celebrate our reception surrounded by loved ones, undisturbed by the unfolding drama. During a moment alone, I noticed a call from Addison on my phone. Preparing myself, I answered, only to be met with accusations and insults. She blamed me for her exclusion from the wedding, accusing me of manipulating her son and labeling me a gold digger, envious of her potential to outshine me on my own wedding day. I calmly refuted her claims with facts, explaining that Jackson makes his own decisions based on what he believes is right, and his choice to exclude her was his own, though I did not try to influence him. Undeterred, Addison threatened to crash the reception, claiming she was already outside. I brushed off her threats with a mix of disbelief and indifference, reassuring her that she would find no support here. Returning to the reception, I braced myself for whatever scene might unfold. As expected, Addison's attempt to enter the venue quickly escalated. Dressed in her extravagant gown and denied entry by security, she epitomized frustration and entitlement, her actions bordering on the absurd. Rather than garnering sympathy, this spectacle only reaffirmed our decision to keep her away from our celebration. The guests, aware of the situation, rallied behind us, leaving no room for Addison's theatrics to disrupt our special day. Her attempt to steal the spotlight didn't end in triumph, but in a public display of her own making, starkly contrasting with the joy and unity inside. The disturbance Addison caused outside the venue quickly caught the attention of our guests, prompting everyone to witness the source of the commotion. When Jackson came across his mother causing a scene, his frustration reached its peak. He confronted her, dismayed by her refusal to respect his wishes and her insistence on blaming his wife. "Mom, what are you doing here? I clearly told you that you weren't invited. Why can't you understand that?" Jackson's patience wore thin as Addison played the victim, accusing him of being manipulated by his wife, whom she labeled as jealous. "Mom, listen to yourself. My wife isn't the problem here. It's you, trying to overshadow her with that extravagant dress and jewelry. You knew she had a modest budget. Your actions were meant to belittle her," Jackson argued, hoping to make her realize the selfishness of her behavior. Addison, seeking support, turned to Grayson, hoping he would defend her actions. But Grayson, equally shocked by her behavior, stood by Jackson. "That dress isn't just any dress, Addison. It's practically a wedding gown. How can you not see how inappropriate your actions are? Look around, no one agrees with you," Grayson pointed out, his disappointment clear. Addison's attempt to justify her choice by insulting Camila's family and guests only made the situation worse. "They don't get it because they're from a different background," she argued, clinging to her misguided beliefs about maintaining her supposed class. But Grayson had had enough. "That's it, Addison. I won't let you insult my daughter-in-law and her family any longer. You've crossed the line this time," he declared, standing firm against her unfounded accusations and sense of entitlement. The conflict highlighted the sharp contrast between Addison's self-centeredness and the united front presented by Jackson, Grayson, and the supportive guests. Her attempt to crash the wedding, instead of gaining sympathy, only reinforced her isolation and confirmed the wisdom of excluding her from the ceremony. Grayson's firm defense of my family was a powerful moment for me, showing the depth of support and love I had found within Jackson's family, despite Addison's disruptive presence. This act of solidarity, affirming me as part of the family, was deeply touching, bringing me close to tears. It strengthened my belief that choosing to align my life with Jackson and his family, separate from Addison, was one of the best decisions I had ever made. Shocked and angry at Grayson's rebuke, Addison couldn't understand how her husband could speak against her, especially to defend what she saw as outsiders. She held tight to her beliefs of being superior, criticizing the wedding and our union. But Grayson's response was surprising and definitive. He expressed regret not for our wedding, but for his own with Addison, admitting their marriage was a mistake due to her unbearable behavior. Then he announced his intention to divorce her, leaving Addison speechless. Grayson wasn't alone in his decision. Jackson also cut ties with his mother, prioritizing the well-being of his wife and their future together over Addison's toxic influence. This decision showed a commitment to shield our new family from further turmoil. Addison was shocked and disbelieving. Her reliance on Grayson and Jackson for financial support had been a pillar of her extravagant lifestyle. Grayson's mention of divorce, along with the prenuptial agreements in place, meant Addison stood to lose not only her family but also the financial security she had taken for granted. Her lavish spending, highlighted by the purchase of the expensive dress, had been unsustainable on her own, relying instead on her husband's wealth. The news of impending divorce and our decision to cut ties with Addison marked a turning point for her. The consequences went beyond losing family connections to a harsh financial reality. Her once secure future, buoyed by wealth and status, now looked uncertain, with the protective clauses of prenuptial agreements leaving her with little to claim. This sudden change in circumstances served as a sobering reminder of the cost of her actions and attitudes, highlighting the transformative impact of Grayson and Jackson's decisions on our collective future. Jackson, Grayson, and I had discussed the situation thoroughly, recognizing the need to set boundaries to protect our new family. Grayson had been considering separation from Addison due to long-standing unhappiness, while Jackson and I were determined to shield our relationship from her toxic influence. Addison, taken aback by the realization that her actions had real consequences, had to face the fallout publicly. Her pleas for leniency, framed as an overreaction to a single dress incident, were met with firm rebuttals. It was evident to everyone, especially Jackson and Grayson, that her behavior went far beyond one incident. They pointed out her consistent mistreatment of me as the underlying problem, dismissing her claims of unfairness as baseless. In a last-ditch effort to gain sympathy, Addison turned to me with tears, pleading for forgiveness. She clung to me, painting herself as a remorseful victim of circumstances. Yet her plea lacked sincerity. It quickly turned sour as she resumed name-calling and accused me of tearing her family apart. Her abrupt shift from fake remorse to open hostility only reinforced our decision to distance ourselves from her. Her failure to offer a genuine apology or acknowledge the impact of her actions further alienated her, not just from me but from everyone present. The guests, initially watching quietly, grew increasingly disapproving as Addison's true colors emerged once more. This scene marked a significant moment for our family. It wasn't just about keeping Addison at arm's length. It was about reaffirming our commitment to respect, unity, and the well-being of our shared future. Addison's failed attempt to reconcile, quickly overshadowed by her return to blame and manipulation, only strengthened our determination. The way forward was evident, marked by a united stance against toxicity and a shared commitment to nurturing a supportive and loving environment free from past grievances. Jackson acted swiftly. Without allowing Addison a chance to argue, he instructed security to escort her out. Meanwhile, both sides of the family and our friends openly criticized her behavior. It was a moment of validation as we watched her being escorted away, allowing us to resume our celebration surrounded by genuine supporters. The very next day, Grayson took decisive action. He returned home only to inform Addison to leave their shared residence and had his lawyers serve her with divorce papers. Her attempts to sway Grayson with tears, screams, and threats in front of the lawyer were futile. When she attempted to approach us, seeking an ally or a way to disrupt our peace, we made a conscious choice not to engage, safeguarding our new life together from her drama. Our phones and social media became Addison-free zones, eliminating any avenue for her to reach out. As for Addison's outcome, it was swift and fair. The divorce left her in financial hardship, her attempts at manipulation proving futile. Her pleas for help went unanswered, forcing her to face the consequences of her actions alone. Eventually, she returned to her hometown, hoping to rebuild her life and reputation, seeking employment and a fresh start. These developments brought us profound relief and closure. With Addison's turbulent influence no longer present, our lives thrived. We hope she finds a path forward that keeps her away from us, allowing us to move on from this chapter without further discord.
Going on school trips costs a lot, especially if you go to a private school. You're probably not used to these expenses since you went to public school. It might be too much for you to pay for it. But don't worry, I'll get you a souvenir. The teacher in charge of my daughter's class is really straightforward, but sometimes he sounds like he's talking down to her. No one should talk down to or ignore others, especially not a teacher to a student. I'm Natalie. My brother and I were left without parents when we were young because they died in a bad car crash. I was only 8, and my brother was 15. After our parents died, our relatives had to figure out what to do with us. We didn't have many family members, and no one had enough money to take care of both of us. They said, "We can't handle both of them because we're struggling to raise even one." They already had 2 kids of their own, so having twice as many was out of the question. We realized that all we had left in life was each other. I was just a third grader, clinging tightly to my brother. I cried constantly, and he felt helpless seeing me go through so much. At 15, he was barely an adult, and I was still a child. He could only do so much to help. After a while, one relative agreed to take me in. "Sorry, but we can't take both of you," they said. "We thought one of you could stay with us, and the other could go to a foster home or shelter." I understood the situation, but I knew being separated would make things even harder. "Please take care of her. I'll go to the foster home," my brother insisted, sacrificing for me. "I'll be okay. Just because I'm in foster care doesn't mean I won't be looked after," he assured me, holding my hand tightly. He made me feel like I deserved it, like he wanted this for me. As he held my hand, I couldn't help but cry and beg him to stay. The family that took me in didn't seem too thrilled, and I always felt like a stranger in their home, like there was a divide between us. I felt so alone. The shelter where my brother stayed was really far away. It was tough being apart, but we kept in touch by phone whenever we could. Even though I was with my relatives, my brother was my only real family. Without him, I started feeling more and more alone. I've always been sensitive and creative. I love expressing myself and letting my imagination run wild. As I felt lonelier, my emotions got stronger, and I started withdrawing into myself. Through middle and high school, that feeling of loneliness stuck with me. I began pouring my feelings onto paper, crafting imaginative stories that flowed naturally from my mind. When I shared some of my writing with my brother, he praised it and urged me to keep going. He said, "This is something special." After graduating, I dove into job hunting. With my passion for reading, I landed a job at a small publishing company that focused on literary magazines. If it had been a bigger company, I might not have applied, not because I wasn't qualified, but because it wouldn't have felt right for me. I put everything I have into my writing. It's kind of an obsession for me. I wanted to show my gratitude to the family who took me in and reassure my brother that I'm doing fine. Starting my first job was tough, and I made my fair share of mistakes, but I kept pushing myself, and before I knew it, 5 years had flown by. At the time, I was working in the editorial department, assisting one of the top writers. This writer had real talent and even won an award for his work. As his editor, I did my best to help him whenever he hit a roadblock. I shared my creative insights and gave feedback to help him improve. When my boss praised me, saying, "Natalie, I don't know what I'd do without your creative mind," it felt incredible. We had a strong bond in our working relationship, and then he surprised me by saying, "Natalie, you're not just the perfect partner at work, but in life too. Will you marry me?" I was totally caught off guard by his proposal. It was unexpected, especially since we hadn't openly dated or been romantically involved. But considering how close we were from working together, we knew a lot about each other. So I said, "Yes, I want to spend forever with you," and it just felt right. My brother was thrilled about our wedding. We hadn't spent much time together since we lived apart, so I couldn't wait to see him again. My husband understood how important it was for me to reconnect with my brother, and he was looking forward to meeting him too. My husband told me about his involvement with the shelter and the kids there. He didn't just contribute financially, he was actively mentoring and supporting the children. "There's one kid in particular who really stands out," he said. "He's driven and hardworking, and he even calls me Big Bro." He was glowing with pride, and I couldn't help but feel proud of him too. 2 years into our marriage, we were getting ready to welcome a new addition to our family. My husband's writing was gaining recognition, and he credited it to my advice and support. "Thank you for always believing in me. I love you," he'd say, making me feel so appreciated. Our daughter, Nicole, was born, and our lives were filled with joy and excitement. She was bursting with energy, and we were over the moon. One day, as I looked in the mirror, I realized that the loneliness and sadness I once felt had vanished. I smiled at my reflection, feeling grateful for everything I had overcome. Nicole blossomed into a kind and bright child. Before we knew it, my husband and I decided to enroll her in a private school. We found one that focused on nurturing independent and creative thinkers, offering a well-rounded education in academics, athletics, and the arts. Nicole thrived in that environment. Our careers were going well too. But when Nicole started fourth grade, we received devastating news about my husband. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and it had already spread too far for treatment by the time we found out. We went to the hospital together, but I returned home alone. I stayed by his side, praying for a miracle, but it wasn't meant to be. I was scared that the loneliness I once felt would return, but this time I had Nicole. I had to stay strong for her. I changed my mindset and focused on moving forward. Nicole and I leaned on each other for support as we faced life without my husband. Every moment became more precious, and I vowed to cherish every second. As Nicole started her final year of elementary school, she was nervous about meeting new classmates and teachers, but she knew she could handle it by the time. As the first semester ended, I noticed Nicole became increasingly quiet about school, especially after spring break. Starting the second semester of fifth grade, she seemed even more distant. My worry grew. Was she not enjoying school? Was she being bullied? But as the second semester neared its end, nothing changed. Today, I had to confront her. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Hi, I'm Nicole, and I'm in fifth grade. Last year, my dad passed away, and it was really tough for me and my mom. But my uncle helped us through it, and I'm grateful my mom was able to heal. I was excited to start fifth grade, even though I knew I have a new teacher and classmates, except for one friend from last year. Our teacher is 28 and has been teaching for 6 years. He kind of gives off an older, annoying brother vibe. Our teacher wanted to get to know us better, so he had us fill out a get-to-know-me worksheet. Then he planned to interview us individually based on our answers. When it was finally my turn, he said, "Your favorite subject is English, right?" I love reading too. But then he mentioned my dad's passing and my mom raising me alone, and I didn't like his tone. Just wondering, what does your mom do for work? My mom works as a contract employee at a publishing company. After my dad passed away, she switched from full-time to contract work for the flexibility. I told her she didn't have to, but she prefers it. It's kind of like working part-time. How do you guys afford the school? You must be having a tough time. It felt like my teacher assumed we were barely getting by. It didn't seem sincere. Then he made more comments about our finances, like he pitied us, like we were pathetic. His attitude during that conversation really bothered me, so I tried to avoid him afterward. But he kept approaching me, usually when I was alone, and would say things like, "Struggling with money is stressful, right? Is your mom still working part-time? Can you afford next semester's tuition?" I tried to brush it off and be mature about it. Once, I even argued back, saying we weren't poor, but he didn't stop. So I decided it was best to keep my distance. He laughs and thinks it's because he's right. I decided to stop talking to my mom about school altogether because I didn't want to involve her. I could tell she was getting worried about me. Then, over spring break, my teacher assigned us a book to read, a popular novel by an author named Kiri. The main character had a tough childhood, but eventually succeeded in life. After class, my teacher approached me when I was alone. "That book starts with a rough childhood, which I bet hits close to home for you," he said. "But let's be real, life isn't like a fairy tale. People from poor backgrounds usually stay that way. It's a cycle, you know?" He laughed and sarcastically apologized for making me read it. I felt so alone and powerless. I couldn't believe he was my teacher. I dreaded going back to school after spring break. I wanted to change my attitude to stop worrying my mom, but my teacher kept picking on me. I couldn't understand why he enjoyed taunting me. I tried ignoring him, but one day I couldn't take it anymore and snapped back. He was speechless at first, then angry. As he walked away, he muttered, "You're a feisty one, aren't you? I'll remember this." That's when I realized I should have just ignored him. At the end of the school year, there's this big fifth grade field trip everyone's excited about, even though it's not happening yet. People in class started buzzing about it, and once again, the teacher singled me out. Those school trips are pricey, especially compared to public schools. "Wonder if you'll have to sell the house to afford it," he said with a smirk. "I'm looking forward to it, but hey, don't sweat it if you can't make it. It's a luxury, and you've got more important things to worry about. Better to stay home." He even hinted it would be better for the school if I didn't go, like payback for snapping at him. Then there was this incident where a classmate's Nintendo Switch went missing. The teacher insinuated that kids from poor families might have stolen it out of jealousy, looking straight at me. My friend started asking questions, but I kept quiet to avoid his smart remarks. Later, when we were discussing middle school plans, the teacher suggested I reconsider staying at the private school. He doubted my mom could afford it and suggested we look into public school instead. He kept belittling us, saying it's stupid to stretch beyond our means. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed out of the conference, tears streaming down my face. I was so frustrated with him. When I got home, my mom sat me down and asked what was really going on, so I told her everything. I was speechless hearing my daughter's words. I couldn't believe she'd been dealing with harassment at school, especially from her teacher. She didn't want me to worry, so she kept it all inside. I hugged her tight, apologizing for not knowing. I knew I had to talk to the teacher right away. I decided to record our conversation on my phone, just in case. "I assumed you'd be working hard, just like I am." His response confirmed my daughter's story. I demanded to know why he felt entitled to speak so horribly to Nicole. It was my duty as a parent to make her aware, even though it should be his job as a teacher, a responsibility he seemed to overlook. He had the audacity to suggest we send Nicole to public school if we were struggling financially, but he was wrong. We've never faced financial instability in our lives. His assumptions about our situation were unfounded. He kept interrupting and talking over me, making it impossible for us to have a civil conversation. His immature remarks pushed me to my limit. I warned him sternly, "That's enough. Don't ever speak to my daughter like that again, or there will be consequences." With that, I stormed out, leaving him speechless. After our confrontation, Nicole said he stopped bothering her altogether. I was surprised she let it go so easily, but thankfully, she made it through to graduation unscathed. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to the parent-teacher conference afterward. Nicole confidently chose to attend the same middle school as her friends, despite the teacher's mocking laughter. "I'm here with my sister for my niece's graduation," Joseph said, suddenly realizing that Nicole was his niece, and then recognizing me as his sister. It was time for me to set the record straight. My late husband was a renowned writer, and we still receive royalties from his work. We're financially secure because of that. Plus, I have my own steady income. He was stunned. "The author Kiri, whose work inspired you and whom you admired, is actually me. It's a pseudonym I used. You can imagine the royalties from that alone." My husband and I enjoyed collaborating, but I also wanted to pursue my own writing. After his passing, I shifted to a more flexible job to focus on my writing full-time. I poured my heart into my writing, and as I continued, I improved. I couldn't have stopped working altogether, but I enjoy the company and value the routine. That's how I finally completed my book. Joseph saw parallels between his upbringing and the author's story, but instead of overcoming his past, he projected his resentments onto others, including my daughter. He wrongly assumed my family was struggling and belittled us. Such behavior is unacceptable, especially from a teacher. He's not fit for the role. He didn't respond and instead broke down in tears in front of everyone. My brother reported him to the principal, leading to Joseph's swift termination. I provided the principal with recorded evidence of my confrontation with Joseph, which left my brother speechless upon hearing. He expressed disappointment in Joseph's true character and doubted Joseph's ability to continue teaching with such behavior. I realized I had misjudged him. Don't worry. People like him are rare, otherwise the world would be doomed. I hope I never become like that. My brother chuckled at Joseph's behavior. You should focus on your own happiness now. I'm content, and you don't need to worry about me. Maybe it's time for you to start dating. What about you? You could date and be even happier. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. But a new dad? My daughter is wise beyond her years. She's my happiness. Why do we feel so alone? Is it in our minds, or do we close ourselves off from seeing the beauty around us? The answer lies within our hearts.
Tonight's pot roast is off limits to you. Here, have this instead. But this is leftover soup and salad from 2 days ago. It might have gone bad. You can handle it, right? Don't be wasteful. Eat up. I don't want to waste good meat on you. I can eat this. What was that? Leftovers are perfect for you. Stop complaining and eat up. My mother-in-law always directs such nastiness towards me. She's so obnoxious, it just gets under my skin. My name is Mary, a 27-year-old woman juggling both work and home responsibilities. I got married only a year ago, so I don't have any kids yet. Right now, we're living with my husband's family in their house. I never wanted to live with my in-laws, but since my husband is the eldest son, we didn't have much choice. I thought it was ridiculous to live with my in-laws in this day and age, but both my husband and my mother-in-law hold on to old-fashioned values. Moreover, my father-in-law is no longer with us, and my husband expressed his concern for his mother. I have no idea what he's worried about. She's still so full of life. My brother-in-law is single and working overseas, so I guess that's just how it has to be. But I still hate it. Now even my husband has started being mean to me, following in his mother's footsteps. He never said anything mean before we got married, but his attitude changed drastically. I feel deceived. He's always acting superior and he always yells at me. It gives me a headache. Hey you, why is my shirt so wrinkled? Ha, is it wrinkled? Yeah, I'll be embarrassed at work like this. Can't you even iron properly? Why can't you do something so simple? No, I did iron it. Your properly is not proper at all. Realize that. What a useless wife you are. That's so mean. You don't have to say it like that. Are you talking back to me? Your face is as wrinkled as this shirt, and you're annoying. Seriously, you look older than you are. It's a turnoff. Oh really? Before we got married, he used to call me adorable. He treated me like a princess. But now he insults my parents and laughs about it. I don't understand why he would say such a thing. I'm not wrinkled or anything. It crossed my mind that he's actually balding for his age. I even found myself wishing that he would go completely bald one day. Our marriage is still pretty new, but I'm concerned about the future. Sometimes the word divorce even flashes through my mind. I was exhausted every day, and once I finished the housework after getting home from work, I felt like I was about to collapse. But my mother-in-law never helped with the chores. She seems to spend her whole day blankly watching TV. There were crumbs from snacks on the floor in front of the TV, and a lot of them. I had to clean them up, and I wish she would at least use a plate. Then, after dinner one day, my mother-in-law started to speak. Hey, let's all go to a spa resort when the new year comes. Oh, that sounds great, I replied. All right, I'll make the reservation. I'll get on it first thing tomorrow. Thanks, Mom, my husband said, beaming with joy. My husband and mother-in-law seemed very happy. I didn't really want to go with these people, but I was interested in the spa resort itself. I love visiting spa resorts, and this one was famous enough to be featured on TV recently. I thought it could be a great memory if I could ignore these annoying people, so inside, I was actually excited. After this, my mother-in-law said she had something to discuss. I wondered what it was and headed to the living room. You know we only have a small car, right? So, I was hoping we could borrow your family's minivan. After all, we can load lots of luggage in it. All right, I guess my father has both a minivan and a small car. He usually commutes in the small car and uses the minivan for shopping trips or camping, which is his hobby. When I called my father, he readily agreed to lend it to us. With that, we welcomed the end of the year vacation. I had to clean the house, so it was again incredibly busy. However, thinking that a spa resort was waiting for me after getting through this year-end period helped me push through. As expected, my mother-in-law wouldn't move from the sofa. She laid there all the time, looking like a statue. Then, the morning of New Year's Day arrived. I woke up thinking about the long-awaited spa resort, but was surprised when I looked at the alarm clock. I had overslept. What? It's already 8:30, but David isn't here. Why? My husband, who should have been sleeping next to me, wasn't there either. I thought he might be in the bathroom, but he wasn't. Huh? Where is everyone? Did they go somewhere? I peeked into my mother-in-law's bedroom, but she wasn't there either. I began to wonder if they left without me. In a panic, I checked my smartphone. I always charge my phone in the living room before going to bed. There was a text notification on my smartphone. It was from my mother-in-law. We're going to have fun. We never booked a place for you. You can spend a lonely New Year. It's okay if the bride doesn't come. So my mother-in-law never intended to take me with them from the start, and she planned to enjoy it with my husband. I was really sad at the same time. I was also very angry. It's terrible to deliberately stop my alarm clock to make me oversleep. I suspect the reason she made me drink a lot of alcohol the night before was to make me pass out. I regretted drinking that much, although it's a relief that she didn't drug me. I was irritated about her pushing drinks on me. Well, there's nothing I can do even if I get angry, so I decided I had to enjoy myself alone at home. I really wanted to go home to my parents, but they're also away on a trip by plane, so it's pointless to go back. Though I ordered a pizza for delivery that day and spent a lonely day. Then my mother-in-law and husband returned from their trip. They had brought smiles on their faces. It was so fun. It was the best. I want to stay there again, of course, without you, Mary. Here, this is the souvenir. What is this? It's a stone I found lying around. It suits you perfectly. Oh, is that so? I couldn't help but think that my mother-in-law was extremely spiteful. Frustrated, I went to return the minivan to my parents' house. I thought they would be home by now. When I arrived at my parents' house, my father came to greet me. Did you enjoy the spa resort? That famous spa should have been quite satisfying. I didn't go because I'm the bride. Well, I was told by my mother-in-law that it's fine if the bride doesn't come. I was left behind when I woke up in the morning. No one was there. What? After that, my father started to do something. Then he had me sit in the passenger seat of the minivan and started driving. The car was headed back to my in-laws' house. When I glanced at my father's face as he drove, he seemed to be angry. Well, any father would get angry if their daughter was treated that way. But I was taken aback because I had never seen such a look on my usually calm father's face. Then my father stormed into my in-laws' house with something in his hand. My mother-in-law came out. Oh, hello, and Happy New Year. Sorry for borrowing your minivan. Happy New Year. Speaking of which, you left our daughter behind, didn't you? No, Mary said she had a fever and couldn't go, so we had to leave her behind reluctantly. I even offered to take care of her. My mother-in-law was lying through her teeth with a smirk on her face. She definitely never said anything like that, and I wasn't even sick with a cold. I wondered how she could tell such an obvious lie. I thought something must be wrong with her brain. Oh, really? But our daughter said she was left behind. She told us she received a message on text saying it's fine if the bride doesn't come. Did I say that? I don't remember. You did. Look at this text. I showed her the text messages. However, she still insisted she was innocent. I was surprised at how thick-skinned she was to still deny it even cornered this far. In a sense, it was admirable. You're still saying that, huh? You're truly a sad person. Oh, by the way, can I charge you for the cleaning of the car interior? What? Why? Because you dirtied it with a married man nonetheless? What a filthy and disgusting scene. What? What are you talking about? This right here. What my father had in his hand was a dash cam. This one has dual cameras, so it can record not only the outside but also the inside of the car. The advantage of being able to record the inside of the car is that it can provide evidence that you were driving safely. My mother-in-law doesn't know much about car supplies or cars in general, so there's a chance she didn't realize this was a dual camera. But what was she doing with a married man in the first place? I regretted watching the footage that my father played back. After all, there were images of my mother-in-law in an indecent posture with an unknown man. Even though my father-in-law is no longer in this world, it's insane to do such a thing with a married man. And what on earth was she doing in her family car? This was on the exact day you borrowed the car. Oh, how disgusting. Wait, this doesn't mean we were doing anything dirty. It's not something perverted. My mother-in-law was in a panic, fumbling and stammering on the spot. Tears welled up in her eyes. She was on the brink of crying. I found myself curious and somewhat amused about when she would finally break down. Maybe I'm being cruel, but after all the time she tormented me, she deserves this much. I couldn't be sympathetic or kind to someone like her. Then she began making pathetic excuses. Her reasoning was all over the place. It was clear she was flustered, yet she was desperate to defend herself. Suddenly, my father pulled another item from his pocket. It was a photograph. The picture showed my mother-in-law and the man from the video engaged in assorted acts in broad daylight. It was unthinkable. The background of the picture suggested it took place somewhere secluded, but the audacity to do this in the daytime was still shocking. You wouldn't have seen these if you hadn't been mean to my dear Mary. Why do you have that picture? Because I'm a detective, remember? Oh, do you recall now? Look, I've been telling you this all along, haven't I? My father is a detective, which explains why he had such a photograph. Coincidentally, the wife of the married man in the picture had hired him for an infidelity investigation. It turns out the wife of this man hired me to investigate her husband's affair. I was surprised to discover you were the other woman. I was going to inform her next week, but I didn't expect to show you this so soon. Ha! No, I'm innocent. I was just forced into an unpleasant situation. I am not at fault. Please don't tell his wife. It was against your will, was it? You seem to be enjoying yourself. We also have video footage of you whispering sweet words to the man. Do you want to see it? I'm sorry. My mother-in-law collapsed to her knees and burst into tears. I watched her in a pitiful state with a cold glare. Sensing that unusual situation, my husband arrived. I had run out of patience with him too, and I proposed a divorce. I've had enough. I want to end this. Let's get divorced. What? I'll go crazy if I stay in this horrible family any longer, so I'm leaving. Hold on. What will happen to our living expenses if you leave? I was fired a while ago. My husband dropped a bombshell. Apparently, he had been fired at the end of the year. I was taken aback. As he had not told me this despite knowing his job was terminated, he had still decided to go on a spa resort trip. He was a complete fool. I felt I had no choice but to divorce him. I took off my wedding ring and left it there. My husband desperately tried to stop me. Wait, can't you forgive me for not taking you on the spa resort trip? It's not just about the trip. I don't want to be with you or your mother anymore. If you want to live with your mother that much, then go ahead, you mama's boy. Please wait, don't go. I got a lawyer and proceeded with a divorce. My ex-husband seems to be having trouble managing his living expenses now that I'm gone. I thought he should find a new job quickly, but having been fired from his last job for theft, he'll probably struggle to find a new one. His previous company had fired him because he had been caught stealing. Apparently, they decided they couldn't trust him and didn't need someone like that. Unsurprisingly, the wife of my mother-in-law's lover demanded compensation for the affair. She ended up spending all the money left by my father-in-law to settle the payment. I haven't seen my ex-husband or ex-mother-in-law since, but I imagine they're probably living the hard life. It doesn't matter to me anymore. Currently, I'm living alone and enjoying my work. I made the right decision not to have a child with my ex-husband. Now I am enjoying a peaceful life and would be happy if I found a new love if such an opportunity arises. This is my plan to make sure to choose wisely. I'm Christina, 25 years old, and I mostly keep to myself. Even though I have a job or study, my family might think I don't because I don't talk about it much, especially my brother. How did I end up like this? Well, it all goes back to my time in middle school when I started feeling like I couldn't trust people. It's not just one thing that caused it, but mostly because I felt ignored. I guess people didn't find me interesting because I was always into machines. I've always enjoyed messing around with computers, and I was pretty good at it, which helped out at home. But then my school grades dropped because I spent more time with computers than with friends, and my parents got worried. When I finished elementary school, my parents started telling me off, saying, "Stop spending so much time with those machines." During middle school, as my parents kept scolding me, I started feeling like I shouldn't pursue my interests. So whenever I have free time from school, I'd hide in my room to avoid my parents, cutting off contact with the outside world. This made more people think I was strange or risky, and I started feeling isolated even at school. The only person who supported me was my brother Keith. He always knew how to cheer me up and keep me going. With his help, I finished school. But I didn't go to high school. Instead, I did computer jobs from home. When I was about 16, I got a part-time job, and with the money I earned, I bought old computers to take apart and rebuild from scratch, just the way I liked. My hobby became a business opportunity, and by the time I hit 20, I was making and selling computers. Soon, I started my own business, offering affordable computers, and became quite well known. By the time I turned 25, I'd made a decent amount of money. I even started contributing $2,500 to my parents' household each month and still had money left over. Even though I tried explaining my job to my parents, they didn't get it. After a few arguments, they decided that as long as I could support myself, they didn't mind what I did. This meant they stopped interfering and I could live as I pleased at home. But my brother still didn't think much of me. My brother used to be my ally, the one who understood me best when I was in school. He was really kind, but maybe he got tired of his sister, who was still at her parents' house tinkering with machines even after turning 20. Over time, he started treating me harshly whenever he saw me. Since I didn't keep quiet about it, we ended up having more conflicts, and now we're not on good terms. Things got even worse after my brother got married. His wife, who we'd known since high school, never really liked me. After hearing about me from my brother, she didn't want to be my sister-in-law and seemed to influence my brother against me. Because of this ongoing situation, I became known as the troublemaker at home. Even though I stayed in my room most of the time, I felt my heart breaking from all the hostility directed at me, which was different from my parents' concerned words. Suddenly, my parents' home, once a cozy sanctuary despite the criticisms, turned into a hostile environment. I no longer felt comfortable there, and it seemed like my parents were being swayed against me while my allies disappeared. Even though I had my own income and contributed to the household expenses, my brother and sister-in-law, who didn't understand my work, saw me as a burden. They started talking about kicking me out and taking over the house. Feeling disconnected from my brother and his plans, I figured leaving wouldn't make much of a difference. Once I found a new place, I wouldn't have to contribute to household expenses anymore, which meant I could save that money instead. It was kind of a silver lining. As I was thinking about moving out, my brother brought up the topic of inheritance out of the blue. He seemed to think that our parents' financial comfort, despite my lack of a traditional job, was due to their wealth. So when the idea of me leaving came up, he suggested, "Since we'll be taking care of mom and dad, we should inherit their assets. You should give up your share of the inheritance." But the truth was, the reason our parents could enjoy their lives without working was because I was covering their living expenses. I didn't think they could manage without that money, but my brother saw me as nothing but a burden in my room. Despite feeling like leaving was the best option, I decided to ask one more time out of kindness. "Are you really okay with me leaving?" I asked. My brother just laughed and said, "We'd be happy if you left already." It became clear once again how little he understood. I felt sorry for him and his wife, which made me even more determined to leave. A few days later, I was still in my room, and my brother and sister-in-law were relentless in their efforts to get me out. They kept knocking on my door, convinced mom to stop cooking for me, and even told me to do my own laundry. But these were all things I'd have to do if I lived alone anyway. I wasn't going to just sit back and let them take my place away from me without a fight. Sure, I wasn't happy about it, but I wasn't about to accept it either. I was being unfairly pushed out, and I wasn't going to take it lying down. After all, unskilled with machines, something my brother seemed to forget. He didn't realize the power I had with a computer at my disposal. I wasn't the type to quietly obey orders and leave. My brother's marriage, with me as the reclusive sister, was the only chance for our parents to have a grandchild. They were so focused on that, they didn't see how wrong it was for me to leave. So I decided to set up a little surprise for them, a trap that would spring into action as soon as I left the house. After finding a new place to live and completing all the necessary procedures, I was ready to leave my family home. Just before I departed, I left a farewell message for my parents and brother. "I've been supporting the family, and you've forgotten all the good I've done. I hope you realize who the real burden on our family wealth is." My parents seemed surprised for a moment, but they probably trusted that my brother would figure things out somehow. They all brushed off my words as bitterness. I knew they didn't take me seriously. But for now, I believed it was best to leave things this way. So I left the house. I took a significant amount of equipment from my family home and bought additional items, along with necessary furniture and appliances for my new place. I set up my new place just the way I wanted it, decorating it with my favorite style and creating a cozy atmosphere. It turned out to be a perfect environment for me to work in, and surprisingly, living alone wasn't as intimidating as I thought it would be. In fact, I wished I had made the move sooner. The people in the neighborhood were friendly and life was comfortable. Since leaving my family home and taking care of everything on my own, I've been enjoying myself, trying out new experiences. While I was reveling in my newfound independence, I wondered how things were going back at my family home, especially since they lost my financial support. Then, out of the blue, my mother called. "Hey, Christina, did you do something to our machines?" she asked. "What do you mean?" I replied. "There's something wrong with the computers and electronics," she said. "I have no idea about that," I said, puzzled. "I used to help out for free because we're family, but since you treated me poorly and kicked me out, even though you're my parents, you'll have to pay the regular price," I explained. "What? That's pretty greedy. We're your parents. Can't you give us a discount?" They responded. "Well, I prefer giving discounts to my friends. Unlike you, they treat me well," I countered. "Fine, you're so cheap," they grumbled. Internally, I sighed with relief that another trap hadn't been triggered and dealt with the situation calmly. But my mother didn't seem to appreciate my response. She abruptly hung up, behaving like a sulking child, and even sent a spiteful email implying that mean people lose friends. It made me question who was acting like the mature one. Frankly, it seemed self-centered, if not downright selfish. As for what I did to the family computer, I simply restored all the adjustments I had previously made for free back to their original settings. To someone unfamiliar, it might seem like the computer malfunctioned on its own. When I suggested they contact the company for repairs as an individual, they got upset. But I expected as much, so I let it go. 6 months after leaving home and settling into my new life, my father called me. "I hate to ask, but can you lend me some money?" he said. "What do you mean? Lend you money?" I responded. "Your brother and his wife have been spending recklessly. They think we're rich, and they keep complaining, asking for money to buy this or go there," he explained. "I have no idea about any of this. Why do you always come to me with everything?" I've heard of daughters who live alone sending money home, but parents asking their children for money? Shouldn't it be the other way around, out of generosity? I questioned. "It's not that simple," he replied. "Well, even $500 would help," he added. "I'm not giving you anything. I won't lend you money either. I have no intention of financially supporting you anymore," I firmly stated. "Of course, I'll work on your machines if you pay for my services," I replied calmly. "You've really become stingy," they retorted. "I guess Mom was right about you." They went on complaining about my unemployed years, but I didn't let it bother me. I just ended the call. My father didn't send any emails, but he started calling me multiple times a day, which I found annoying. What troublesome parents I have, I thought to myself. A few days later, my brother, sounding desperate, called me. When I asked why they kept contacting me, he asked, "Do you know why our family was wealthy?" It seemed like he suspected their financial situation had worsened since I moved out, but it was too late. My current home was my sanctuary. My work and life were all centered around this house, and I had no intention of leaving it again. Could it be that our family's wealth came from the $2,500 I was contributing each month? I pondered. I didn't have to give that much, but I felt grateful for my upbringing, so I willingly contributed more. But now, why would I continue supporting a home that kicked me out? It didn't make sense, right? So that's when Mom and Dad's finances took a hit. My brother realized. "I'm sorry, but even if you asked me to come back, I have no intention of doing so," I replied firmly. "I understand now that what happened was wrong. I'm sorry, but it's too late for apologies. I have no plans to have any involvement with you in the future. Please don't call me anymore." "Hey, wait," my brother protested, but I ended the call. When I left home, I made a vow never to be drawn back into their drama. Forgiving them wasn't something I could do easily. I decided to cancel my cell phone contract to avoid the constant calls. 5 years have passed since then, and I've moved on. I got married and started a new chapter in my life. My partner is in the same line of work as me, so he understands my lifestyle and helps out with household chores. Although I thought about reaching out to my parents since they're technically family, I felt it was too late. I hadn't made any attempts to reconnect. However, my husband expressed an interest in meeting my parents and learning about their current situation. To gain insight, I hired a detective to investigate. What we discovered was shocking. My parents, desperate to maintain their lifestyle and keep my brother and his wife tied to the family home, had accrued a mountain of debt from various lenders. With no hope of repayment, the debt continued to grow with accumulating interest, leaving them in a dire situation. The debt from my parents alone exceeded $100,000, and their house had been used as collateral. Now, where our family home once stood, there's only an empty lot. Although I felt a twinge of sadness due to my sentimental attachment to our family home, I couldn't help but think that my parents were facing the consequences of their actions. I decided to look into my brother's current situation. It appeared that my brother had suggested a divorce due to his wife's extravagant spending habits, but she vehemently opposed the idea. They were now embroiled in a drawn-out divorce lawsuit, which was draining both their time and finances. His wife had hired a lawyer and was resisting the divorce, refusing to let go of my brother, leaving them at an impasse. Despite rumors, my brother and his wife hadn't yet had children. To confirm, I sent the detective to the hospital where they were being treated. It turned out my brother was indeed infertile, nearly incapable of producing sperm, making natural conception highly unlikely. My parents, who had pinned their hopes on having grandchildren from my brother and his wife, were disappointed and ended their cohabitation. The family home had to be sold to settle the debt, marking the sad state of my family. This distressing reality became apparent after a cursory investigation. It was evident that engaging with them in this condition wouldn't be beneficial for me or my husband. Now, I have a loving husband, 4 children, and a dog. We've purchased a spacious home and are living the life my family once dreamed of. If they were aware of our situation, they might try to exploit it, which I couldn't bear. As soon as I learned about this, I went to the local office and arranged for my personal information to be accessible only through formal disclosure requests. I made a conscious effort to keep my distance from them and asked my husband not to engage with them regarding our marriage. Although he seemed disappointed at first, after explaining the situation, he understood and hasn't brought it up since. I hope that once things settle down at my family home and a time for reconciliation arrives, I can rebuild a relationship with my parents and brother.